I have always felt like there is a quiet type of person who does not slide easily into the noise of the world. I know because I am one of them. I listen more than I talk. I notice how light stretches across a room, how shadows shift, how time never really stands still. My mind is always watching change happen in real time. When I pause before answering, it is not because I am confused or unsure. It is because 10 different possibilities are running through my head at once. I am weighing meanings, consequences, tone, timing. I am what people call a deep thinker. I live more inside my thoughts than inside conversations. I can take one small moment and turn it into a whole universe of ideas. And if you have ever lived this way, you know it is not easy. Being a deep thinker is not just about being smart, it is about being sensitive. It is about noticing layers that most people walk right past without seeing. I feel things under the surface. I sense what is unsaid. That sensitivity can be a gift, but it can also be heavy to carry. To really understand someone like me, you have to understand the pull between the inner world and the outer one. A lot of people believe that thinking too much only leads to confusion. But for me, thinking is like breathing. It is how I make sense of being alive. I do not just see a tree, I see how its roots grip the soil, how it leans toward the light, how its quiet struggle mirrors my own life in ways that are hard to explain. Everything turns into a symbol. Every conversation becomes a study of emotion. Silence turns into a question. A single glance can feel like a whole story unfolding. From a psychological point of view, people like me have something researchers call high trait introspection. That means we naturally analyze not only what is happening around us, but also what is happening inside us. I am always searching for meaning. I keep asking why, not to be difficult, but because asking why feels necessary, like air in my lungs. This way of thinking is connected to activity in a part of the brain known as the default mode network. That area becomes active when we drift into reflection. Memory, imagination, creativity. It explains why my mind feels like a storm of connections, constantly linking ideas, comparing experiences, turning things over from every angle. But that same ability can push me into isolation. While others move through life reacting in the moment, I am observing. I pause. I notice details. I think before I speak. And sometimes by the time I am ready to say something, the conversation has already moved on. So I stay quiet. People sometimes mistake that silence for boredom or indifference, but it is not a lack of interest. It is depth. I do not just want to talk, I want to understand. I crave conversations that mean something. I want talks that go beneath small talk, into fears, dreams, the hidden structure of the human heart. Surface level chatter drains me. It feels shallow, empty. While most people float near the surface of daily life, I'm diving deep, searching for something real. But that depth comes at a cost. I overthink. I replay moments again and again. I break down every sentence. I wonder what someone truly meant. I question whether I said too much or not enough. My thoughts loop through what ifs and maybes, not because I lack confidence, but because I see nuance everywhere. Every decision carries multiple meanings. Every emotion has roots buried beneath it. My mind refuses to rest until it feels like it has uncovered the truth. There's a psychological term called metacognition. It means thinking about your own thinking. Most people do this once in a while. I live inside it. It feels like I am always watching my thoughts from a distance, questioning them, rearranging them, trying to understand their patterns. This gives me strong self awareness, but it also opens the door to doubt. When you see everything clearly, you also see every flaw in sharp detail. I do not just ask myself what I want, I ask why I want it. Where did that desire begin? What would happen if I achieved it, or if I never did? I analyze love, ambition, fear, memory, until they almost feel solid, like I could hold them in my hands. But in doing that, I sometimes lose the simple joy of just existing. I forget that not everything needs to be understood. Some things are meant to be felt. You will often find me walking alone with headphones on, not because I'm lonely, but because solitude feels natural to me. I need quiet space to breathe, to process, to untangle thoughts that other people never even notice. I can feel deeply while looking calm on the outside. My emotions move like quiet waves beneath the surface, strong but unseen. I might sit in a cafe staring into space, while inside my head I'm replaying something I said 10 years ago, wondering what it revealed about who I was back then. This is not about punishing myself, it is analysis. I am not judging myself as much as I am trying to understand myself. I am mapping the landscape of my own mind, learning where each feeling lives. From the outside, it can look like I am detached from reality. But the truth is, I am trying to see reality from every possible angle. One thing I have noticed about people like me is that we tend to drift into what psychologists call existential thinking. That is when your thoughts do not stop at your own life, but stretch out to life itself. You start thinking about time, purpose, right and wrong, awareness, and what it all means. These are not questions with clean answers, and that is what separates deep thinkers from regular overthinkers. Overthinking is worrying about what might happen tomorrow. Deep thinking is questioning reality as a whole. One comes from anxiety, the other comes from awareness. But here's where things get complicated. The same mind that can see patterns everywhere can also create meanings that were never really there. When you think deeply, you can connect almost anything to anything else. And sometimes that web of connections turns into a trap. I might read too much into silence. I might assume something meant more than it actually did. I might turn a simple moment into a philosophical problem that never gets resolved. It is like using a microscope that is too strong. You start noticing details that were never meant to be examined that closely. And yet, that same depth is where creativity comes from. Many of the most influential thinkers in history were deep thinkers. Albert Einstein, Leonardo da Vinci, Carl Jung, they saw invisible threads linking ideas together. They looked at problems from angles nobody else thought to try. When your mind never stops asking why, you eventually stumble onto answers that others overlook. But the world we live in now does not always value that kind of thinking. Modern life rewards speed, productivity, certainty. Taking time to reflect can look like hesitation. Silence can be mistaken for weakness. Complexity can be labeled as confusion. So people like me learn to hide how deep we really are. We try to fit into a world that moves faster than our minds. We nod along in conversations, even when something feels off. We smile politely while our thoughts drift far away. And once everyone leaves, that is when the real conversation starts, inside our own heads. There is a loneliness that comes with that inner life, because deep thinkers want connection, but only the kind that feels honest and real. And real connection requires vulnerability. Not everyone is willing to go there, so we stay guarded. We watch quietly. We wait until someone shows signs that they can handle depth too. Only then do we open up. And when we do not open halfway. We open completely. We share our fears, our hopes, the thoughts we barely admit to ourselves. Because deep thinkers do not know how to love or trust in small pieces. But that openness can come back to hurt us. When you see the world in shades of gray, you expect others to see it that way too. You assume people mean what they say. You assume honesty is the starting point. Not everyone lives at that depth. So when reality does not match those expectations, the pain cuts deeper. Not because we are weak, but because we invested meaning into everything. To someone like me, even a small betrayal can feel enormous. And a small act of kindness can restore my faith in people. Nothing feels minor. Everything carries weight. That is the double edge of it all. Every thought feels alive. Every emotion echoes. I cannot numb myself even when I want to. I notice the things others miss. The way someone avoids eye contact. The way laughter fades once the moment passes. The way people talk about forever while already planning their exit. I do not just see what is happening, I see what could have happened, what almost was. There's a concept in psychology called depth processing. It means experiencing things with layers of meaning and emotional connection. When I remember something, I do not just recall what happened. I remember how it felt, what it symbolized, what it might have meant. Memories do not live in my mind as single moments. They exist as whole emotional landscapes. That is why nostalgia hits me so hard. Why a song can pull me back into a version of myself that no longer exists. This is not just sensitivity, it is how my brain works. Research shows that people who think in abstract and reflective ways have stronger connections between the emotional and logical parts of the brain. They think and feel at the same time. That is why I cannot simply turn my thoughts off. My emotions are woven into my logic. For me, feeling is a form of thinking. And that is why people sometimes misunderstand me. They might call me distant, or dramatic, or too complicated. But what I really am is aware. I see the structure beneath behavior. I notice how fear hides behind anger, how love hides behind pride, how people project what they cannot face in themselves. Once you see things that clearly, you cannot unsee them. And once you realize how complex everything truly is, living simply becomes hard. Deep thinkers often struggle to stay present, not because we do not want to be here, but because our minds do not live in one moment. They move across timelines, constantly connecting past, present, and possibility. I think one of the rarest things about people like me is this: we can see the cracks in humanity and still choose to love it anyway. That is not naivete, that is wisdom. It goes deeper than intelligence. I do not sort people into good or bad, I see them as stories. I see how everyone is shaped by quiet battles no one else witnessed, by moments that left scars you cannot see with your eyes. Because of that, I forgive more easily than most. But I do not forget quickly. I may release people from my life, but I keep the lessons they left behind. I carry those lessons quietly, turning them over in my mind the way time smooths rough stones into something softer. People sometimes wonder why deep thinkers seem a little melancholy. But it is not sadness, it is awareness. It is knowing that beauty and loss are always tied together, that nothing we love stays exactly the same forever. It is understanding that joy and grief are part of the same melody. Feeling both at once is not weakness, it is what it means to be fully alive. Psychologists sometimes call this emotional complexity. It means being able to hold mixed emotions at the same time. That is not confusion, it is capacity. I do not label emotions as good or bad. I treat them as information. Fear shows me what matters. Sadness points to what I value. Joy reminds me what I need to protect. Every feeling carries meaning if I am willing to listen. But here is something many people misunderstand about deep thinkers. We are not always serious. Some of the funniest people I know are deep thinkers. When you truly grasp how absurd life can be, humor becomes a kind of wisdom. I laugh not because I do not care, but because I care deeply. Laughter is how I hold a fragile world without breaking under it. Sometimes the healthiest response to chaos is a quiet smile, a soft laugh, a reminder not to take everything so hard. Still, people often misunderstand me. I can seem distant or hard to read, but that is not because I am checked out. It is because I am thinking. I am not ignoring you. I am processing layers of what you just said. Your words, your tone, your intention, your emotion. I am not trying to win a conversation. I am trying to connect. And when that connection does not happen, I pull back. Not out of arrogance, but self protection. Because the truth is, I feel things deeply. I may look calm on the outside, but inside, emotions move like a storm under still water. I sense tension in a room. I notice when a smile does not reach someone's eyes. I feel the weight of what is left unsaid. That sensitivity is powerful, but it can also be overwhelming. I absorb too much. I pick up emotions that are not mine. That is why I need solitude. When I am alone, I reset. I write. I reflect. I stare out windows. I think about everything and nothing at once. In that quiet, I find myself again. It is not loneliness. it is restoration. For someone like me, solitude is where clarity lives. It is where the noise fades and the quiet truth inside me finally speaks. But deep thinking without grounding can turn into a spiral. So the healthiest deep thinkers learn how to anchor themselves to the real world. We practice presence, creativity, service, something that connects what is inside us to what is outside us. Because thought without expression becomes heavy. We learn to turn reflection into something tangible, a piece of art, a poem, a conversation that brings healing. We realize that the purpose of thinking is not to escape life, but to deepen it. One of the most beautiful things about deep thinkers is that we rarely accept things at face value. We question systems, traditions, and assumptions that others follow without thinking. That can make us seem rebellious, but it comes from care, from compassion. We ask, why do we do this? Does this still make sense? Is there a better way? That curiosity is an act of love for truth. And yet, that same curiosity makes life more complicated. When you can see many perspectives at once, choosing sides becomes difficult. You understand everyone. And so you feel everything. You see how hurt people hurt others, how no one is purely right or purely wrong. And suddenly, simple answers no longer work. That is the burden of empathy. It makes judgment nearly impossible. It is why deep thinkers often feel out of place in a world that prefers certainty over truth. But that is also what makes us rare. In a time of instant opinions, we hesitate. Not because we do not care, but because we care too much to speak without thought. We know words carry weight. We know complexity matters. And we know that sometimes silence says more than noise ever could. And if you love a deep thinker, you will notice this. They value understanding more than agreement. I do not need you to think the way I do. I just want you to think with me, to question things together, to wonder, to explore the mystery of life side by side. Curiosity is how I show love. I show care by paying attention, by remembering small details, by asking how you truly are, not just how you say you are, by seeing you beyond your words. But I also need patience. Trust comes slowly to me. I do not open doors easily. I test people's intentions the same way I test my own thoughts, carefully, honestly. And when I finally let someone in, it is because I have decided their soul feels safe. I do not fall often, but when I do, I fall completely. My love is not casual, it is deliberate, it is aware. There is something deeply human about the way people like me move through the world. We remind others that life is not meant to be rushed through, that silence can be meaningful, that not every moment needs noise or certainty to matter. We remind people that mystery has beauty, that asking questions is not weakness, it is wonder. In the end, the psychology of deep thinkers says something about everyone. Somewhere inside every person is the ability to slow down, to think deeply, to look past distractions, and face themselves honestly. We just forget how powerful stillness can be when life starts moving too fast. Maybe that is why people like me exist, to slow the world down just a little, to remind others that thinking, when done with care, is an act of love. Because deep thinking is not only about understanding the world, it is about cherishing it. It is about standing in awe of how complex we are, how brief time really is, how beautiful imperfection can be. So, if you are a deep thinker, do not apologize for your silence. Do not shrink your thoughts to fit smaller conversations. The world needs minds like yours, minds that can see what is invisible. Question what seems obvious. Find meaning in ordinary moments. You might not always feel like you fit in, but you were never meant to. You were meant to see through things, to turn chaos into clarity, noise into insight, moments into meaning. Because deep thinking is not just a way of understanding life, it is a way of honoring it. And while the world keeps rushing forward, you carry something it often forgets: depth. And in a shallow world, depth is its own kind of light. Don't forget subscribe, like the video, and turn on notifications.